You're making $150,000 a year. That's more than triple the median household income in America. You should feel rich, right? You should feel like you've made it. But instead, you're lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering how you're going to cover your credit card bill this month. You're driving a BMW that you can barely afford, living in a house that eats half your paycheck. And somehow, you feel broke. Here's the thing. I talk to people like this every single week. Doctors making $400,000 who say they can't afford to max out their 401k. Tech workers pulling in $250,000 who have $3,000 in their savings account. And the wildest part? They're not lying. They genuinely feel poor, and there's a specific mathematical reason why. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about why high-income earners feel just as financially stressed as people making a quarter of what they earn. If you're someone who's gotten multiple raises over the past few years but somehow feel like you have less money than you did before, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're talking about something that almost nobody discusses, the psychological trap that keeps people feeling broke no matter how much money they make. And I'm going to show you the exact math behind why someone making $300,000 can feel poorer than someone making $60,000. Look, let me start with a statistic that's going to sound completely insane. According to a 2023 survey by the American Psychological Association, 72% of Americans report feeling stressed about money. But here's where it gets weird. When they broke it down by income level, 68% of people making over $150,000 still reported significant financial stress. Think about that for a second. You could literally triple your income and only reduce your financial stress by 4 percentage points? That doesn't make any sense, right? Wrong. It makes perfect sense once you understand how the human brain actually processes wealth. Here's what most people don't realize. Feeling rich has almost nothing to do with how much money you make. It has everything to do with the gap between what you earn and what you spend relative to the people around you. Let me give you a concrete example. I'm going to tell you about two people, and I want you to tell me which one feels richer. Person A makes $75,000 a year, lives in a modest 3-bedroom house they bought for $280,000, drives a 5-year-old Honda Accord that's paid off, takes one nice vacation a year, has $45,000 in savings and investments. Most of their friends make between $60,000 and $90,000. Person B makes $220,000 a year, lives in a beautiful 4-bedroom house they bought for $950,000, drives a leased Mercedes GLE, takes multiple vacations a year, but puts most of them on credit cards. Has $12,000 in savings. Most of their friends and colleagues make between $200,000 and $400,000, and several make over $1 million. Who feels richer? If you said person A, you're absolutely right. And this is where it gets really interesting. Person A is saving about 15% of their gross income. After taxes, housing, car, insurance, food, and basic expenses, they have about $800 a month left over for whatever they want. They feel like they're winning. Person B, after federal and state taxes, is taking home around $145,000. Sounds like a lot, right? But their mortgage is $5,800 a month. That's $69,600 a year, almost as much as person A's entire gross income. Their car lease is $950 a month. They're spending $2,500 a month on childcare, $600 on their kids' activities and private lessons, $400 on the gym and wellness subscriptions, $1,200 on groceries, because they shop at Whole Foods and buy organic everything. Do the math real quick with me. After taxes, $145,000. Minus mortgage, $75,400. Minus car, $64,000. Minus childcare, $34,000. Minus activities, $27,000. Minus gym, $22,200. Minus groceries, $7,800. And we haven't even talked about utilities, insurance, phone bills, streaming services, eating out, clothes, travel, or any of the 1,000 other things that come up. Person B is spending literally everything they make, every single month. One unexpected $5,000 expense, and they're putting it on a credit card. Now you might be thinking, but Nick, that's just bad financial planning. That's their fault. And you're right. But here's the thing. This isn't happening because people are stupid. It's happening because of a specific psychological mechanism that almost nobody talks about. There's this concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill. Basically, humans are really, really good at adapting to new circumstances. You get a raise, you feel awesome for like 3 weeks, and then you completely adapt to your new income level, and it becomes your new baseline. The $220,000 doesn't feel like a lot of money anymore because you're used to it. But it's even worse than that. Because you're not comparing yourself to your old self. You're comparing yourself to your current peer group. When person B was making $75,000, they hung out with other people making $75,000. When they got promoted and started making $220,000, something sneaky happened. They started hanging out with other people making $220,000. They moved to a neighborhood where everyone makes that much. Their kids go to schools where the other parents make that much, or more. And here's where the psychology gets really brutal. The human brain doesn't care about absolute wealth. It cares about relative wealth. You don't feel rich because you make $220,000. You feel rich or poor based on how you compare to the people around you. And when you're hanging out with people making $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, your $220,000 starts to feel like you're barely scraping by. Let me tell you what this actually looks like in real life. You're at a dinner party with 3 other couples from your kid's school. Someone mentions they just got back from 2 weeks in Italy, stayed in Tuscany, hired a private driver. Whole thing probably cost $25,000. Everyone's talking about it, looking at the photos, saying how amazing it looks. Now you took your family to Florida over spring break. Stayed at a nice resort, had a great time, spent $6,000. But suddenly you feel less than. You feel like you can't really talk about your vacation because it wasn't as impressive. Another couple mentions they're remodeling their kitchen, $60,000 renovation. Everyone's excited to see it when it's done. Someone else just bought a boat. Their kid got a $1,200 gaming PC. They're talking about sending their daughter to a $4,000 summer camp in Switzerland. And you're sitting there, making $220,000 a year, literally in the top 5% of American earners, feeling broke. Here's what most people don't realize. This is a trap, and it's a trap that gets worse the more money you make. I'm going to share something that's going to sound absolutely insane, but I promise you it's true. There are people making over $1 million a year who feel financially stressed. I'm talking legitimate, can't sleep at night financial anxiety. How is that even possible? Let me walk you through the math, because this is genuinely shocking. Let's say you're a successful doctor or lawyer making $1.2 million a year. First, let's talk about taxes. Between federal, state, Social Security, Medicare, and local taxes, you're paying close to 50%, depending on where you live. So you're taking home around $600,000. That's still an enormous amount of money, right? It is. But watch what happens. You live in a wealthy area because that's where people in your profession live. Your house cost $2.3 million. Your mortgage is $13,500 a month. That's $162,000 a year. You're down to $438,000. You have 2 cars because you and your spouse both work. Nice cars because everyone in your neighborhood has nice cars. Between the 2 car payments and insurance, that's another $2,500 a month. $408,000 left. Your kids go to private school because all the other doctors' and lawyers' kids go there. That's $45,000 a year per child, and you have 2 kids. You're at $318,000. You have a full-time nanny or au pair because you both work demanding jobs. That's $60,000 a year, down to $258,000. You contribute the max to your 401k. Good job. You're one of the few people doing this right. That's $23,000. At $235,000. Property taxes on your house are $24,000 a year. Utilities are $600 a month, $7,200 a year. Home insurance is $4,500. You're at $199,300. You belong to a country club because that's where you network, and that's what people in your field do. $18,000 a year. $181,300. I could keep going. Groceries, clothes that are appropriate for your professional setting. Maintaining your home. Travel to visit family, date nights, your own student loans that you're still paying off, retirement contributions beyond the 401k, college savings for the kids. You see where this is going? Someone making $1.2 million can absolutely, genuinely run out of money every single month. And the really messed up part? They can't even complain about it to most people without sounding like an entitled jerk. Look, here's the thing that makes this trap so dangerous. It's not just that you're spending all your money. It's that you've locked yourself into a lifestyle that requires that level of income to maintain. You can't just sell the $2.3 million house and move into something cheaper without pulling your kids out of their schools, leaving your social circle, and basically admitting to everyone that you can't afford your life anymore. That psychological cost feels enormous. You can't downgrade the cars without everyone noticing. You can't pull your kids out of private school without them asking why all their friends still go there. You can't quit the country club without losing professional connections. This is what I call lifestyle lock-in, and it's the reason why high-income earners often feel just as trapped, maybe more trapped, than people making way less money. Because here's what nobody tells you. The person making $60,000 can get a $15,000 raise and completely change their financial life. That's a 25% increase. They can save almost all of it, build an emergency fund, start investing, feel real progress. But the person making $400,000, they get a $15,000 raise, and it literally doesn't matter. It's an extra $7,500 after taxes that disappears into their monthly expenses without them even noticing it. They still feel broke. Now you might be thinking, okay, Nick, this is depressing. What do I actually do about this? And I'm glad you asked, because there is a way out of this. But it requires something that's really, really hard. You have to intentionally manage your reference group. Here's what I mean. You need to make friends with people who make less money than you. I know that sounds weird, and I know it sounds kind of classist to even say out loud, but hear me out. The problem isn't that you're friends with successful people. The problem is that if all your friends are people who make more than you, or spend more than you will never feel like you have enough. Your baseline for normal will always be just out of reach. But if you have friends across different income levels, people making $60,000, people making $120,000, people making $300,000, you get perspective. You remember that your life is actually incredibly privileged. You remember that the baseline for normal doesn't have to be a $2 million house and private school. This is where it gets really interesting. Studies on happiness and money consistently show that once you hit around $75,000 to $100,000 in income, enough to cover your needs and have some discretionary spending, additional income has dramatically diminishing returns on happiness. But here's the key. That only works if you don't inflate your lifestyle to match your income. Let me give you a framework that actually works, regardless of your income level. When you get a raise, split it 3 ways. 33% goes to increasing your quality of life. This is your lifestyle inflation allowance. You're allowed to upgrade your life. That's the whole point of making more money. But you're capping it at 1/3 of the increase. 33% goes to savings and investments. This builds your safety net and your path to actual financial freedom. 34% goes to accelerating major financial goals, paying off your mortgage faster, maxing out retirement accounts, building your kids' college funds, whatever your big picture financial goals are. So if you get a $30,000 raise, here's what that looks like. After taxes, that's about $18,000 more in your pocket. $6,000 goes to upgrading your life. Maybe that's a nicer vacation or a slightly nicer car or eating out more. $6,000 goes straight to investments. And $6,000 goes to your big financial goals. The beautiful thing about this approach? You genuinely do get to enjoy your higher income. You're not living like a monk, but you're also not falling into the trap of spending every dollar you earn. I want to share one more thing that's really important, because I think this is what makes the difference between people who feel rich and people who don't. You need to regularly remind yourself of your starting point. If you're making $150,000 now, remember when you were making $50,000 and thought that if you could just make $75,000, all your problems would be solved. Remember what your life was like then. Remember what you couldn't afford that you can afford now. It sounds simple, but most people never do this. They just keep moving the goalposts. They make $100,000 and think they need $150,000. They make $150,000 and think they need $250,000. They make $250,000 and think they need $500,000. There's always someone making more than you. There's always someone with a bigger house, a nicer car, a more impressive vacation. If you base your self-worth and your sense of financial security on comparison, you will never, ever feel like you have enough. Here's what I think people get wrong about wealth. Wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how long you could maintain your current lifestyle without working. If you make $300,000 a year, but spend $295,000, you're not wealthy. You're broke with a high income. You're one job loss away from disaster. But if you make $100,000 a year and spend $60,000, and you've been investing that $40,000 difference for years, you're wealthy. You have options. You have freedom. You have security. This is the part that most people miss. Feeling rich is about having options. It's about knowing that if you lost your job tomorrow, you'd be okay. It's about being able to say no to things you don't want to do. It's about not lying awake at night worried about money. And you don't get that from earning more. You get that from spending less than you earn and building a gap between your lifestyle and your income. Okay, so here's what you actually need to do. Not what you should do or what would be nice to do. What you actually need to do if you want to break this cycle. First, calculate your real monthly spending. Not what you think you spend. What you actually spend. Every dollar. Go through your credit card statements and bank accounts for the last 6 months and add it all up. Most people are shocked when they do this. Second, identify your reference group. Who are you comparing yourself to? Whose lifestyle makes you feel inadequate? This isn't about judging them. It's about being honest about how they're influencing your spending. Third, make one friend who makes significantly less money than you and one friend who's achieved financial independence. You need both perspectives. You need someone who reminds you how fortunate you are, and you need someone who's figured out how to get off the treadmill entirely. Fourth, implement the split rule on your next raise. Before you see that extra money in your paycheck, decide exactly where it's going. A third to lifestyle, a third to savings, a third to big goals. Set up automatic transfers so you don't even have to think about it. And fifth, this is the hardest one, practice gratitude for what you already have. I know that sounds cheesy. I know it sounds like self-help nonsense, but I'm serious. Every week, write down 3 things about your financial life that you're grateful for. The stability, the comfort, the options you have that you didn't have 5 years ago. Because here's the truth. If you can't be happy with what you have now, you won't be happy when you earn more. You'll just move the goalposts again. Look, I know this video was a little bit different than my usual content. I'm not telling you about a specific investment strategy or a tax loophole or how to optimize your 401k, but if you make $100,000 a year and spend $60,000 and you've been investing that $40,000 difference for years? You're wealthy. You have options. You have freedom. You have security. But I genuinely think this is one of the most important topics I can talk about, because I see so many people, smart, hardworking, successful people, who are absolutely miserable, despite making enormous amounts of money. And it breaks my heart because it doesn't have to be this way. You don't need to make more money to feel rich. You need to fix your relationship with money. You need to fix your reference group. And you need to build a gap between what you earn and what you spend. Do that, and you'll feel richer at $100,000 than most people feel at $500,000. If this video helped you think differently about money, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to dive deeper into this stuff, I've got dozens of videos about building wealth, investing, and achieving financial independence. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.